Hi, I'm Michelle Hammond, and I'm the botanist with the Stewardship Department at the East Bay Regional Park District. And today I'm presenting on Pallid Manzanita Rare Plant Management and Update. Our parks are beautiful places to hike, but one of my favorite things to do is to look at the diversity of things. This is really my version of beauty. I love even the tiniest little scruffy plant that pops out to me hidden under a grass. Looking for rare plants is my treasure hunt. There are always scruffy surprises. But a Pallid Manzanita, it's a gorgeous shrub. A lot of folks love manzanitas with their shiny red bark and their graceful branches. It's a classic, beautiful chaparral plant. Pallid manzanitas are also an important plant for pollinators, especially because they bloom in the middle of winter. The coast of California is unique in that it has native plants that bloom at different times throughout the year, not just spring and summer. In the East Bay, Pallid manzanitas are an essential part of their chaparral ecosystem, but they're under threat to such an extent that they have special protection at the state and federal level. Because of Pallid manzanita's vulnerability, the Park District spends a lot of time and resources managing for this plant and its community. I like to think about rare plants like this. Species like the Pallid manzanita are like rivets on an airplane. The airplane represents all life on Earth, including humans. We are one of those rivets. You can lose one rivet, maybe a few rivets, but if you lose too many, you lose the airplane. You lose life on Earth as we know it. So protecting rare species is vital. My talk will be focusing on managing this rare species. I'll start with a brief discussion of its life history and challenges to its long-term survival. Then I will provide some context for the Park District's management approach and tell you about some of the specific vegetation management actions that we are taking. So to explain more about Pallid manzanita and the rare community it lives in, I'm going to briefly describe its life history. The scientific name is Arctostaphylos pallida. It grows in a vegetation community called maritime chaparral, which by its name implies that it is close to the coast, and therefore a fog climate is definitely important. It grows on ridge tops and steep slopes in nutrient-poor soils, and it blooms in the middle of winter in December and January. It is a plant that is California endangered and federally threatened. So this means that Pallid manzanita is at the highest rarity ranking in the state of California and one of the rarest plants in the Park District. The range of the Pallid manzanita of where it grows is the East Bay Hills. And now this is its current and historic range. It's considered to be a local endemic because this is the extent to which it grows in the world. The northernmost part of its range is in El Sobrante in our park, Sobrante Ridge Regional Preserve, and it grows to the south along the East Bay Hills. In the southernmost park is Roberts Regional Park, which is next to Redwood. On this map, the pallids are in orange and our parks are in dark green. So 2/3 of Pallid manzanita populations grow on, 2/3 of the entire Pallid manzanita population grows on Park District land. And the other third is on private property or City of Oakland property, like the Chabot Space and Science Center and Joaquin Miller Park. And Huckleberry, in particular, of our parks, has a lot of private backyards upslope of the park where Pallid manzanitas are growing. And Huckleberry is shown in this photo here, and it kind of is a really good lead-in to challenges that this plant is facing. And this is a picture of a backyard upslope of Huckleberry, and you can see it is essentially on the wildland-urban interface. That's what we call the area of our parks that is adjacent to private property and goes about 100 to 150 feet into our parks. It's also the area where we're very actively managing for fire safety. So the Pallid manzanitas grow entirely in wildland urban interface, and that is a big challenge for managing this plant. This photo also illustrates that plant pathogens are often introduced on private property, which is upslope of the park, like Phytophthora. And in the photo, you see the ridgetop here with the private landowners owning part of the way down the slope, and the boundary to our park is here, where you see the woodland coming in. This is also where the pallid manzanitas are growing, under the woodland and up the slope a bit in the chaparral. This photo also shows an invasive stand of French broom here, which is a plant that definitely affects the pallid manzanita. And other non-natives like Monterey pine and eucalyptus were planted along the borders of the park. But the main issue on this slide, or one of the main issues on this slide, is essentially how obvious this maritime chaparral has lost its natural disturbance regime, which is fire, especially fire, a stand clearing fire, which would keep this a shrubland and not a woodland. And without that, essentially, you can see on this slide, without active management, pallid manzanita will disappear from this location. Now I'm going to talk about a plan that was completed to guide the park district in managing fire safety with vegetation control along the East Bay Hills wildland urban interface. The Wildfire Hazard Reduction and Resource Management Plan, we affectionately call the WRUMP by its crazy acronym. This plan tells us how to manage the vegetation in the East Bay Hills and directly addresses the need for management of the pallid manzanita because of where it grows. And one of the recommendations of this plan is to create a pallid manzanita management plan, which was created to guide the park district in the restoration and management actions towards the recovery of the pallid manzanita. This plan also guides all WRUMP actions within pallid manzanita habitat, and the goals of the pallid manzanita management plan are aligned with the 2015 U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recovery plan for this species. Another plan that helps us manage the pallid manzanita is the Rare Plant Inventory and Condition Assessment Plan, which is in draft form. And the pallid manzanita is included and prioritized in this overarching park district plan. And this first version has a goal of organizing the information for all rare plants on park district property. Future actions illustrated in this plan will be to create management and monitoring plans for the majority of our rare plants, and the pallid manzanita management plan is already achieving one of the objectives of this plan because we are actively using it to monitor and manage the recovery of this rare plant. Here are the pallid manzanita management plan goals, which will be the focus of the rest of my talk. We will be doing ongoing stand health assessment, and we're going to maintain and expand existing stands of pallid manzanitas. We're going to implement measures to contain and avoid Phytophthora infection, and we're going to increase public awareness of the plant and its threats. So how are we achieving pallid manzanita management plan goals? We will be doing another stand health assessment in 2024. This will be an update to the 2018 report, where we did a comprehensive census around existing stands and counted several locations with new individuals. In 2024, we will essentially do the same census survey and assess markers of stand health, like the percent of stand with evidence of disease or dead plants. Another goal of the pallid manzanita management plan is to maintain and expand existing stands of pallids. In collaboration with the fire department and park staff, we are using fuels reduction or fire safety vegetation management to enhance pallid manzanita habitat and encourage its regeneration. We're also trying to grow more pallids and help them thrive by mimicking their natural disturbance regime of stand clearing fires. And to do this, we will remove overstory shading and reduce invasive plant pressure. Another goal of the pallid manzanita management plan is to implement measures to contain and avoid Phytophthora infection. We will, on an ongoing basis, map the Phytophthora infection area before any fuels treatment, as well as avoid the introduction of Phytophthora and contain any infection during work in pallid areas. Now I'm going to briefly explain what the heck is Phytophthora and how are we managing for it. Phytophthora is a plant disease similar to a fungus, but it's actually a water mold that moves through the air on rain and fog and can also move through soil, especially in wet conditions. The name Phytophthora literally means plant destroyer. And one species of Phytophthora, Phytophthora ramorum, is also called sudden oak death. Although sudden oak death affects many woody plants, not just oaks, including Pallid manzanita. We now know that one way to manage for sudden oak death is to control bay laurel trees, which can be a long-term sources of this plant disease. Reducing bay trees with within Pallid manzanita habitat reduces the amount of sudden oak death in the area and gives woody plants like Pallid manzanitas a chance to resist this disease. Another way we manage for Phytophthora is to arrive clean and leave clean, especially when we are working in our parks in sensitive areas. Moving dirt and plant debris around moves Phytophthora around, which is why another important goal of the Pallid manzanita management plan is the prevention and containment of Phytophthora. This photo shows one way that our fire department and its contractors are implementing arrive clean, leave clean. Their best management practices shown here are a bucket of diluted bleach where you can stick their boots in it on their way into Pallid manzanita areas and on their way out. And the best part about this best management practice is that they're also avoiding spreading weed seeds and other plant pathogens. And if you want more information about Phytophthora, this is a great website, calphytos.org. The Pallid manzanita management plan includes broad goals and objectives for the enhancement and recovery of the Pallid manzanita population and recommends creating park-specific regeneration plans. We have one in place for Huckleberry Regional Preserve, and in the last few years, we have used it to plan work in this park. One of the threats to Pallid manzanita in all of its habitat is the overgrowth of oak woodland and non-native invasive plants that compete with Pallid manzanita for light and other resources. This likely stops new pallids from germinating. In Huckleberry, we collaborated with park staff to use vegetation management to mimic how a fire would change the habitat next to this chaparral community. Reducing overstory shading and understory competition by removing dead plant material and pruning large trees opens up the canopy for more light. The photos show where park rangers helped us thin bay laurel trees and other shrubs to open up the canopy and open up the habitat next to the pallids. This will help the dormant pallid seed germinate and help the adult pallids thrive. We use these same treatments in collaboration with the fire department, this time in an area of Huckleberry that is within the fuels management recommended treatment areas. The fire department created burn piles out of removing dead trees, shrubs, and branches and thinning and controlling eucalyptus and bay laurels. In the photo, you see me out here measuring the burn piles. We recorded measurements like pile size and distance to adult Pallid manzanita, which you can see one upslope from me here. During the burn, we also recorded the length of the burn and the temperature. This should help us learn how to best cause pallid germination. This pile burn was last winter, and we are waiting to see if we get any pallids coming up. The Park District is controlling invasive plants in all of our fuels treatment areas, including Pallid manzanita habitat. Here I have photos of French broom in and around the burn piles after the burn in Huckleberry. We are using herbicide, hand pulling, and flaming to control invasive plants like French broom, whichever treatment is feasible and most effective. The flaming treatment uses a propane torch under wet conditions to kill seedlings in the cotyledon stage, which you see here when there's only 2 leaves coming up. This is Tatiana using a propane torch. And she's part of our integrated pest management staff and is flaming and killing the abundant broom seedlings that came up this past spring in and around some of our piles. Here's an action video where Rose, who works with us in stewardship, and Tatiana were flaming the broom seedlings right before a heavy rainstorm came in this past March. You can hear the broom popping, which means they're hitting it just right. So hopefully you heard that okay. One of the most important goals of the Pallid Manzanita management plan, besides steaming broom seedlings, is to contain and avoid Phytophthora infection. Phytophthora is confirmed in huckleberry along the Upper Loop Trail, and there is visible evidence of sick and dying shrubs and trees. In the photo, you can see 2 dead branches of a Pallid Manzanita. Huckleberry was likely infected with Phytophthora that were introduced upslope on potted plants that were infected with Phytophthora in landscaping on private property. In accordance with the Pallid Manzanita management plan, we have ongoing testing throughout all of the stands to keep a current map of Phytophthora infection areas. We use this Phytophthora infection map to plan the timing of vegetation work. For example, the fire department works clean areas first and infected areas last to contain the spread of any Phytophthora infection. All staff that enter infection areas use strict decontamination best management practices and arrive clean and leave clean. Moving to Sobrani Ridge Regional Preserve, the northernmost park in the Pallid Manzanita Range, I will continue talking about how we are achieving the Pallid Manzanita Management Plan goals. One of the first times that I worked with the East Bay California Native Plant Society volunteers was when they approached me to start a project on reducing bay laurels and also reducing the shading of Pallid Manzanita at Sobrani Ridge in an area where the chaparral had become essentially an oak woodland. The volunteers had already been working with park staff along the Manzanita Loop Trail and had noticed that younger pallids seemed to be revived where they pruned back an oak tree above it, opening up the canopy for more light. In the photo, you can see the sunlight in this area along Manzanita Loop Trail after park staff followed up this volunteer effort and pruned back large oak trees, as well as removing small oaks and bays. More work is planned for this park in the next few years. The Sobrani Ridge Regeneration Plan is in process. We'll be using the plan created for Huckleberry as a template. Our fire department is already helping achieve these same goals in the recommended treatment areas in Sobrani Ridge. They're using the same techniques and best management practices that were used in Huckleberry to create burn piles by removing dead trees and branches, thinning other trees and shrubs, and in addition, reducing bay laurels. There is a Sobrante Ridge pile burn planned for this winter that I am excited to go out and monitor. Avoiding and containing Phytophthora in this park is another important Pallid Manzanita management plan goal. By controlling bay laurels in the oak woodland and maritime chaparral, we can reduce the effect of sudden oak death on the plant community. Sobrani Ridge is where the plant pathologist we hired, Ted Swiecki of Phytosphere Research, confirmed for the first time that sudden oak death affects pallid manzanitas. In the photo here, you can see Ted and his crew monitoring what looks like a very dead branch in a Pallid Manzanita in 2017, and the same shrub in 2022, with the live branches showing with red circles around them. This pallid is this pallid is resisting the sudden oak death infection that was confirmed in 2017. It's still alive. At this point, Sobrani Ridge does not have evidence of other species of Phytophthora than that one Phytophthora ramorum. However, there's a lot of pallid dieback along Manzanita Loop Trail where this one is found. We will be continuing testing in 2024 as part of the stand health assessment. For these last three parks, Redwood, Sibley, and Tilden, the same Pallid Manzanita management plan goals guide our fuels management actions within pallid habitat. The stands of pallids in these parks are small compared to the large stands in Huckleberry and Scrawny Ridge. In Redwood, pallids grow along East Ridge Trail with 1 or 2 pallid shrubs growing under non-native Monterey pine and eucalyptus woodlands downslope. In Sibley and Tilden, there are also pallids growing in these same non-native woodland communities. The Park District Fire Department has opened up habitat for pallids in these parks with their work removing dead Monterey pines, thinning eucalyptus, and controlling invasive shrubs like French broom. We'll be updating the Phytophthora infection maps throughout the Pallid Manzanita range on an ongoing basis, which is another of the Pallid Manzanita management plan goals. All work within Pallid Manzanita areas in these three parks has used the same strict best management practices to prevent spread of plant diseases like Phytophthora. This photo of a dead pallid branch is from Sibley. Of the original 4 pallids in Sibley, 2 have died, although there is not evidence of Phytophthora from testing. The other photo shows a Tilden pallid that had glorious flowers at the tip of almost every live branch in the winter sunshine, in spite of the obvious die-off of about 1/4 of the plant. The last Pallid Manzanita management plan goal I will talk about today is increasing public awareness with public outreach for Pallid Manzanita and its habitat threats. Several of our staff, including myself, helped record a new training video about Phytophthora prevention best management practices. We hope to have you laughing and learning soon with that one. We put up a new sign in Huckleberry, several new signs in Huckleberry to let park users know they should take care not to damage a protected plant. We also have some Phytophthora information signs in the planning stages. Arrive clean, leave clean is our new mantra. Over the years since the last Pallid Manzanita comprehensive census in 2017, we have found new young pallids like this one along a Huckleberry Trail near the top of the ridge in maritime chaparral habitat. This pallid is thriving in the light gap that is maintained by trail clearing, where park staff carefully trim back the other shrubs around this plant. I connect with new park staff throughout the pallid parks, as I like to call them, to answer any questions and help them confirm when any new plants might come up. All staff at the Park District are very knowledgeable about Pallid Manzanitas and the other rare plants in this park. And this is a photo of a young pallid found at the bottom of the Huckleberry Canyon near the Lower Pinehurst Trail in unexpected habitat. It's growing in a closed canopy stream or riparian woodland in deep and rich soil, which is really unlike the classic ridgetop rocky habitat where the large stand of Pallid Manzanita grows up the hill in the park. We have also added overlooked mature Pallid Manzanitas in several parks to our map since the last census. But I'm interested to see what next year's stand health assessment and survey will find. Stewardship has collaborated with park staff, our fire department, and volunteers to use vegetation management to assist the recovery of Pallid Manzanita stands. The Pallid Manzanita management plan goals listed on this slide, again, have guided these actions and helped the Park District comply with permitting and regulations around this rare plant in our efforts to create a fire-safe area at the edge of our parks. We don't know what the future holds. The changing climate will affect pallids and the maritime chaparral community they grow in. We can help mitigate climate change effects and give Pallid Manzanitas the conditions to help them thrive, and at the same time, create a more fire-safe vegetation community for all of us. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.